Hi, this is the Wrestling Doctor here for Pro Wrestling Extra. I'm sitting here with Ash Kristensen. Let me tell you, I want to send you people, once again, I like to always do this, look up this guy on YouTube, check out his matches, see what he can do. Ash, thanks for being here with me tonight.
I'm glad to be here.
I know we're here with United Pro Entertainment tonight.
Yes, sir, here in St. Mary, Georgia.
Okay, and you have a match here, and your partner is Dagan Briggs, and y'all are doing one of the great tag teams that are out right now, known as the Undead.
Right.
How in the world did that get started?
Actually, Dagan was doing the zombie deal for a while, and then that turned into his tyrant thing, and all of that's really over with a lot of different feds. And after a while, I was always doing my own thing. I was a singles guy. I was in tag matches every now and then, but and I was always, one of the guys that Dagan would call, if he needed somebody to work on a different show. But I forgot where it was, but there was a show down south, I think like in Miami, and they call him up and they say, hey, we're doing an all tag team match, but we want you on there. And they were thinking about like throwing him in there with like a random guy, so it'd be, a zombie, and then whatever the other guy's gimmick was, they would be a tag team. And he said, no, I'd rather be a two-man zombie tag team. Could we do that? And they said, yeah, do you got a guy? And then so he called me up and asked me, and I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to do that. I didn't really think about how much getting into the face paint and all that and getting out of the tights and start working in boots was going to be such a big difference, but it ended up working out. And then from that show, we put it on YouTube, talked to a couple other promoters, and we went from him doing his singles and me doing my singles to us putting the Undead together, and now we've done like about 10 different shows with it.
I mean, boom, you guys are taking off. Now I got ahead of myself a little bit. Let's back up for you. Now, when did you break into business? What year?
I started training with Steve Madison and Jeff Bradley down in Tampa in 2006. I think my first match was a summer 2007, working for USCW in Palatka, Florida, as well as in North Florida as well, a couple other places. And my first couple matches were in front of probably 20 people. I remember going all the way up to Savannah one time, drove on my own gas money, actually picked up a guy that we both went to school with from Tampa. We drove all the way up to Savannah, Georgia, didn't get paid for the show. One thing they didn't tell us in school was where to get gear. I remember, I think I was wearing like swim trunks, like swim trunk Speedos as my bottoms. It was pretty tacky, everything I was wearing, but it worked out. I ended up getting a couple other bookings off of that. But
now I laughed a little bit because let me tell you, there's plenty of days I wore Speedos in there, and somebody pointed that out in an old picture of me the other day. But that's what you have to do. You paid a little dues, traveled up and down the roads, found out some things about the business, and you learn. That's what you do. You learn.
Exactly.
And that's important. That's one of the things that we talk about on the Pro Wrestling Extra website. I have a vlog on there, and we talk is so the younger guys can get some experience. Do you got any advice for some of the young guys that are starting out 2 or 3 years in the business, the things that they need to do? There are people that I'm talking to that are saying, how can we, get booked? How can we get our characters the way we want our characters to be?
Well, I mean, just like any business, networking is the best thing you can do. One thing that I personally fail at is kissing a lot of ass, and that's one thing that I've seen guys that are just not very good, that they buddy up with the right people and they get booked everywhere all the time, and that thing is really strong. But if you want to do it, I mean, the way I did it was, before I got into the business, I lived in Jacksonville, and I really researched all the schools in Florida and visited a few, just kind of like I was going to college. I kind of had to pick out what's right for me. I mean, some of them were backyard spots. Some of them, I remember going to a place in Mayport near Jacksonville. These guys, they were all nice guys, but they built their own ring, and they all kind of just trained themselves. And really, I went to one of their I guess practices, and they just beat the shit out of each other. Whereas when I finally got all the way down to Tampa to visit that school, you could really tell that it was more organized. They really taught safety. Everything was just, you could tell that it was better and that they were coming from the right state of mind versus who's going to do the next super power bomb, Hurricane Rana. And I mean, a lot of times I come into contact with guys that have been wrestling 2 or 3 years, or they've been wrestling as long as me, if not longer, and they've never been trained the right way. Now, they're still talented, they still have a good personality, they still have the body, they still have everything that could help them excel, but they just haven't been trained right. And if anything, going to one of those schools is also going to help you put a foot in the door and do that networking and do it the hard way versus, you know, buddying up to somebody. That's something that I did, and I really think that's the most important thing, is to get trained right. And
I completely agree with that. You know, that is probably the most important thing, is if you start right, get your basics down, learn from somebody that knows, and stay in it. And you said the key word for me is like a college. You're doing a college course for the rest of your career.
Exactly.
You learn every single day. You spend time, just like any other professional athlete, watching film, studying, trying to learn something new, and that's really, really important, you know, so I'm 100% behind you on that. Okay, where else have you worked? Have you been out of state, or are you particularly of Florida?
I've been all over Florida and Georgia, basically. I tried to get up to South Carolina for a while, but they said there were some sort of rules and stuff that they had that we couldn't get in. That was years ago. I've heard other things since then, and really it was all about, like, I feel like coming from Florida, you're just in this little pocket and you can't really get out, because there didn't look like there was much going on in Alabama. And, you know, for most of my career, I don't want to say I worked alone, but I really traveled alone, because I was coming from Jacksonville and St. Augustine when I moved back from Tampa. I was coming from there. And really, until I met Dagan, there wasn't anybody for me to split gas with or travel with, so I couldn't really go too far. So I was going, you know, the longest I'd go was up to Macon or Atlanta or Tallahassee or down to Tampa, and, you know, those 4-hour drives, I mean, by yourself really cost the most.
It does. Well, what were you working as when you were doing your single stuff?
Really, I mean, I was just like most of the guys that come in the business. They wanted to be the next, you know, CM Punk or Dean Malenko. I just worked as my name. I wore trunks, I kick pads. I was just like a Chris Jericho generic guy, hoping that, you know, that would somehow get me over. I didn't really have a gimmick. I was, for a while, I did like I wanted to be the Saturday night party guy. I wanted to do that, and, you know, may have gotten over. I ended up linking up with another guy. We started a tag team called the Poppers, and we went out. We were the college party guys. We wore pop collars. We, you know, we were heels, so we got over as, you know, we were douchebags. Our move was called the Roofie Colada. It was just fun.
I think I saw one of those videos. Was that from Orange Park? Didn't they do something in Orange Park? Was it?
Maybe.
Was it Renegade? Was it Renegade?
It was, Remy Marcel was my tag partner. There was a couple other guys that came in. We had like a big group going. Dallas Riley, a few other guys helped us out, and it was a fun gimmick, especially working as heels, because we could just go out and, I mean, it was just being arrogant was the idea. It was great. It was fun.
All right. All right. I'm going to ask you a question about the business now, the independent wrestling scene that's going on today. There's a lot of talk that it's having a lot of problems. Of course, the economy's down too, but there's a lot of promotions running.
Right.
There's only so many fans. I mean, they can watch so many hours free on television. They spend their monies on pay-per-view. You know, so it's hard to get them to spend their money to buy a ticket for an independent show.
Right.
Is there anything you can think of that would help promoters, help the business, that could be done different to attract fans?
One big thing that I always saw when I came into the business was I saw professional wrestling as almost the exact same thing, independent professional wrestling almost as the exact same thing as like the independent music scenes that are all around the nation. And it's the same thing that they're having problems with, in that they're having at venues they're having 6 or 7 shows a week with 5 or 6 bands on them, and it's really, they're getting oversaturated with the bands. The kids still want the bands, the kids still buy all the CDs, they go to the shows, but it's really just, there's so many of them to go to. Which ones do you pick out? And every other band that comes out sounds the exact same as the other bands. And it's kind of the same way in wrestling. Every other guy that comes out looks just like this guy, and he's doing the same moves that this guy's doing.
Right.
And then Friday and Saturday night, 2 towns right next to each other are having shows. And which one do you go to, or do you go to both? And then on a Friday night, there's 4 or 5 different shows all over Florida that you can go to. And it's kind of that oversaturation that is killing the business, but at the same time, it's also helping promote, bringing in new fans, bringing in more independent wrestling fans that aren't just watching TV every Monday night. They're also, all right, Dad, I want to go watch this live Friday and Saturday night. So it's helping and it's killing it all at the same time.
It is. When I broke into business, there was nothing like what there is now. There was, 10 promoters in all the southern states, and they had territories, so it wasn't like you can go and work this town and this town.
Right.
You had to be hired. You had to be brought in. They didn't even hire you. You had to be brought in. They wanted you. There wasn't a school you could actually go to. They had to bring you into the school because they thought you could make money for them.
Right.
So it's different. It gives a lot of guys a chance to wrestle. That's a good thing. The bad thing, like you says, is it caused this oversaturation of the business. There's just so much money that the fans have to buy tickets. It's that way in Orlando, it's that way around Miami, it's that way in Tampa, and it's that way in Jacksonville and in Georgia.
And like what you said with the territories, back then, everybody made sure they went out of the way not to step on anybody's toes, yes. not to book the same towns, not to book the same weekends, and it worked out for everybody. Nowadays, especially with, there's a couple schools in Orlando and Tampa, and they're all just, I feel like they're all just trying to bulldoze each other, trying to run each other out of town. They might not run each other out of town, but what they're doing is they're killing each other as well as
right.
themselves.
Absolutely.
They're giving themselves a bad reputation for trying to run somebody out of town.
Let me ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'll probably be right here in the same arena working, and I'll be fine with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
And I'm happy with it because, I don't know, when I first came into the business, I wanted to hit it big, and I wanted to be on the road every day, and I've realized that's not as realistic as it sounds, and it's not as easy as it sounds, and honestly, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm happy doing this a couple times a month, and it's fun. That's the way I like it.
It is. People ask me, well, you wrestled all those years and you got bad back and you're hurting all the time, and I said I'd do it again in a second.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, thanks for sitting down with me.
Happy to do it.
I appreciate it. Be sure you check this guy out, Ash Kristensen, on YouTube. Check his matches out. Check for the poppers while you're at it. Check for the Undead. This is a wrestling doctor from Pro Wrestling Extra. Thank you.